Hi everybody! This video is about getting back on track with training after taking a break. So for the past few weeks, maybe even a month, I've not really been training my dogs in the way that I used to. Life got in the way, and now I want to get back into training, and I'm super excited about it. You know, when you go on the internet and you see what your friends are doing, you can get that excitement to want to train and do the things that you think your dogs and you can do. But what you should really do, if you've taken a break from training and you've just been feeding them and playing with toys and stuff like that, or interactive toys and just doing walks, I suggest going right back to the start and working on the foundations. So it really depends on your dog what you do. If you have a dog that can get overexcited by food, I suggest using food that's lower value at first and working after the dog has had a meal. So in the morning, the dog's had their meal, and then maybe half an hour or an hour later, you then do a training session using low value food and you work on calmer behaviors. Where if you had a dog that's not really food motivated, you've been feeding them a lot maybe because you've maybe been feeling bad that you haven't been training them, so they're not really that motivated for food. Maybe they're a little bit overweight. Sometimes if a dog isn't fit or they have a little bit extra weight, they're not as motivated for food. If you have a dog like that, you can try using higher value treats and training before a meal. I always like to feed a little bit of a meal though, so like to take the edge off so the dog's not hungry. So a small breakfast, like a mini breakfast, and then use the rest of the breakfast for training. Hey guys, if you've taken a break in training, I suggest going back to basics. So choose behaviors that are really strong that your dog knows and not behaviors that are confusing or frustrating to your dog to begin with, and then really build that fun of working in a training session together. So behaviors your dog really enjoys are usually behaviors they might offer when you have a treat. So some dogs might spin, they might sit, and those sort of behaviors that you know your dog loves doing that are easy to do and not very taxing. So I suggest working on those and using a 1-to-1 ratio of reinforcement, meaning you're giving a treat for every behavior. You can also go back and really make it easy. So going back to how you originally trained it, if you're working on sit, you can say sit and then lure the dog into the sit position. If you say spin, you can then lure the dog to spin in a circle, feed a treat, or if you tell the dog to go to their mat, you can lure them to go to the mat. So it's not just about working on one behavior at a time. You could work on multiple behaviors in the training session and just make it super easy so the dog's not making any mistakes and the dog's getting a treat for every behavior, and there's a high rate of reinforcement where the dog is not having to wait a long time before getting the treats. After doing a few training sessions like that, you can then start to increase the duration between treats or asking for multiple behaviors before a treat if your dog is used to that. Also, keep in mind if you haven't worked on a specific behavior in a very long time, say for example if your dog does sit pretty or stands on their back legs, or it's a behavior that involves you know, some muscles that aren't usually built when they're just laying around the house or walking or playing, then you want to make sure to go back to the start of how you trained it. So if you haven't worked on sit pretty in a while, then you would go back and work on sit pretty, just doing short repetitions where your dog is sitting pretty for a millisecond rather than asking for more. Or if your dog is limping, the trick of limping on the front leg, just go back to basics of how you trained it and spend 2 weeks getting back into taking multiple steps while limping. And that will really help build the muscles and make it really easy and fun for the dog rather than you asking the dog to do something that is exhausting to them. Hey guys, another thing you can do if your dog gained a little bit of weight, maybe you had you know, you had a vacation and your dog gained a little weight, is reducing their food intake or their calorie intake and exercising them more. So taking them on more walks and doing some fitness training exercises before then asking for complex behaviors or active behaviors. Say maybe your dog's not that interested in heel work and you really want to get into heel work training again, you could just get your dog fit first and then start working on the heel work, rather than the opposite way around where you're hoping to get your dog fit doing the training itself. Okay, so with these guys, hi, yeah, you knew we were going to do something. So with these guys, we do, oh, hi, Tug. Tug wants to do some stuff too. So with my two Border Collies, when I haven't worked with them in a while, and I do double dog tricks with them, they can get too excited. They can get way too excited, especially for TOYS's. So to begin with, I'm going to go back and use food to train the behaviors that they're doing together and work on them calmly. And then after doing them calmly for a bit and giving them a treat for every single behavior, then I'm going to start working on giving them a toy for every single behavior. And then, Tug, where are you? Tuggy, go jump up. Tug, go jump up. Good. And then after working on the toy, then I can start to increase how many behaviors I do before they get their reinforcement. Yeah, okay. So here we go. Stay there, Tug. So I could just first get them used to taking treats next to each other like this. Good job. And then I can start asking for super easy behaviors. I'm going to stand up. Sit. Good. Good. So these guys, they can be excitable. So I'm using a slow, calm treat delivery. Good. So I'm moving my hand slowly to give them the treat. Ready? And I don't know if they'll lay down, so I'm going to say down and move my hand at the same time to get them to lay down. Good job. I'm going to ask for sit. Good. And if you hadn't done a lot of training with your dogs and you were doing double dog stuff, you could work on them separately first before then adding them together. So I could have done all these exercises with just the dogs separate before doing them together. Okay, ready? Wait. So I also want to work on this exercise, which is to walk behind them, and it's not working. So what I'm going to do is go right to the beginning of how I trained it, which is to take a mini step, and they don't know what I'm doing. Ready? Sit. So I'm going to take a step away. Good. And you can imagine that all this training that I'm doing is proofing the behavior, because they didn't know what I was doing because I'm talking to the camera. Good. Wait. Good. So basically the behavior I'm doing is getting them to look to the right and to the left and to the right. But if I just went and did it after not doing it for very long, what you can see is Halo's feet would move, or maybe one of the dogs would get up because they're excited about the treat. So instead of going and seeing what might happen, I can go back to how I originally trained it, which is just marking them good for me moving around in front of them while they stay there. And if they get up, I'm just going to lure them back into the position, take a step away. Good. Move to the left and the right. Good. And what I'm looking for is that they're keeping their front feet still. Good. Good. Also, how I feed the treat can help with how they keep their front feet still. Good. And when I feed them, after saying the marker word from behind like that, I'm going to make sure that I feed them where their heads are naturally in the sitting position facing forward. And that's really going to help where I feed the treat. Good. Okay. So this exercise of me just walking around them would be the perfect exercise to work on instead of trying to get the cool head movement, because as you can see, he wanted to keep sitting pretty, she wanted to get up, and his feet would slightly move when he did the head behavior. Wait. Look left, look right, look left. Good job. Free. Good job. Epic, my Chihuahua, is a little bit excitable right now. So instead of trying to work on something calm or like add duration to like a downstay or something like that, I'm going to work on some of the fun, easy things that she likes to do that involve a little bit of energy. So one thing I could do is work on the recall. Another thing I could do is work on the game of touch, where she goes and touches my fingers like that. Good. That's a really fun game for her. And the other thing that I can work on, because she's in a really excitable mood, is working on her prancing. So as you can see, she's already set up to prance. Now, if she was calmer, she might not be as interested in exerting that much effort. But by just holding the treat above her head and going the correct speed, I can work on her prancing. Yay! It's really hard to show in this room, but there we go. Good girl. Good girl. Ready? Good. Ready? Prance. Good. Prance. Good girl. If prancing isn't one of the fun, easy behaviors you've been working on, you could simply work on teaching your dog to follow a lure. So you can mark and reinforce your dog for first following the lure from a distance like that, and then from closer up. So if your dog is jumping for the treat right next to you, you can feed a treat on the ground and keep a distance from where the dog is and where the treat is in your hand, and that will prevent your dog from trying to jump up for the treat. We can also work on leg weaving, and I can go back to simply luring her through my legs and feeding a treat down on the ground, because what can happen sometimes is she can get overexcited and frustrated and go too fast when doing this behavior. So I can go right back to the start of just luring her through. And because we're just getting back into training, I'm not going to ask for too much, even though it's really tempting to want to do more leg weaves. I'm just getting her back into the game of things and going a nice slow pace where she's calm and not frustrated or overexcited. Good job. Another thing I can do is reinforce her for doing nothing in between the behaviors. So sometimes she has the habit of changing position, and that can be a superstitious behavior. I have reinforced her for lying down when I'm talking, but if I'm just training, I don't want her to suddenly go into a down if I haven't given her a treat fast enough. So one thing you can do is reinforce the absence of any behavior between the cues. So if I ask her to spin, ready? Oh, spin is that way. Epic, spin. I'm going to mark and then reinforce her for just standing still and not sitting or downing in between the cues. Epic, spin. Good. And that's a great exercise to begin with and clean up your training rather than jump into something really advanced. A lot of people ask, how do you train advanced behaviors? And really the answer is making sure that you have really strong foundations on the really basic behaviors. So instead of just jumping ahead and thinking, oh, she already knows to wave her paws, it's been a while, I'll just get her to do it, and then there are lots of mistakes, and then I don't go back to the foundations of how I trained it ever in my training, what can happen is the behaviors can get sloppy and confusing and start to vary. So by going back and working on the foundations, that's really how you can go to training advanced behaviors. Both paws. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support my work, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. You can also become a supporting member of channel Kikopup by clicking the join button. See you later. Sit pretty. Good job.